Welcome back to Wrestling Brain. It's another AEW pay-per-view week, which means it's another pay-per-view cycle closing, which means it's time for faces from the channel, friends from afar, near and afar. I suppose we've had some near friends on here as well, to preview this Sunday's pay-per-view together. It's AEW Revolution 2024 headlined, we think, by Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland challenging for Samoa Joe's AEW World Championship. I'm Uturu Sinza, Josh Custodio, one of the three faces that are going to be bringing you through this stacked card, frankly, giving you our picks, giving us predictions of angles, giving predictions for the future. Of course, I'm not doing it alone. You know I'm from Mondays around these parts. It's Torque Penderloin, Andrew C. Slak, the enforcer of the channel. Slak, how you doing today?
Good. I'm fired up, man. I'm not thinking about work. Work is over. We're talking wrestling. I couldn't be happier, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I think you're so happy, or at least maybe your DMs earlier lead me to believe, not only for the pay-per-view, not only to be talking about it, but for our third guest on today's preview show. We are very excited to be joined a friend of the channel, one of our favorites to talk to every day in the Wrestling Brain Discord. He could basically be New York Islanders brain. I went to pull his credits. And it's like, this man has so many projects based around the Islanders that it's deeply impressive to me. I'd love to be that, to have like multiple arms of AEW coverage. Dan Saraceni joins us today on Wrestling Brain. Dan, how you doing, man?
I am very well. I am very honored to be here with your two brains, two of my favorite brains on earth right now. Saying my Islanders body of work is deeply impressive. It's probably not the word I would use. Deeply something else, deeply psychotic, deeply sick, deeply disgusting and disturbing. But yes, it is true. But yeah, no, this is great. And as I was telling you guys before, when I got the message from Josh, like asking me to join you guys, I was like, this has to be meant for somebody else. There's no way that these guys want me to talk about this stuff. But I was shocked that it was actually me, and I can't wait to dive into this incredible pay-per-view that I think we're all going to be watching in a couple of days.
Well, that makes me feel like I should have, maybe I don't extend these enough, because we had the great Aaron Campo on here last month, and he said something similar. And it's like, maybe I should let people into the mindset, and Slak can back this up because he sees it play out in the Discord. First of all, I find that people say yes, or at least cancel less, if you just ask them closer to things. Like if I book someone 2 weeks out, they're more likely day before to be like, oh, I actually can't do it. But if I ask them morning or day before the thing, they're very likely to stick around. And then secondly,
Smart.
I'm like, my thought process is no further than, who do I like to talk to who has a camera and mic? And I love talking to you. I think your takes are good as gold, and you have a mic and camera. So we're just as honored to have you here. And Slak, I can speak for you there, right?
You can. Saying yes to things is a good way to get involved. So good advice for me to anybody out there.
I was going to say, Slak's a full-on host on the channel now. He is proof of like the Discord to guest host pipeline. It's real.
Well, I think it also goes to like how great Wrestling Brain is, and how in such regard we hold you and Zoobs and Slak and Matt and Bobby and everybody who works for it, because it's such an oasis for thoughtful, intelligent, funny, insightful wrestling commentary that it seems like I could never be a part of this. Like, this is, this is too much. It's like asking me, like the New York Times isn't asking me to go write for them, right? Like, or Sports Illustrated, like, it's something like that, because let's be honest, a lot of wrestling stuff on the internet is garbage. Like, it's terrible. But
yeah, a lot of it you could just walk into and immediately be like, oh, I own this website.
Sure, yeah.
Within a month, you're like, oh, they recognized.
Right.
It's very sweet of you, Dan. Thank you. Slak, I'm going to throw to you out the gate here. It's Revolution 2024, and I think suffice to say, we're all very excited for it. But I actually want to reverse a little bit here before we get into the preview show. Can you just talk about this pay-per-view cycle? Where was your relationship with AEW exiting Full Gear? And how do you feel now on the road to Revolution in contrast? If there is a contrast, maybe you feel the exact same.
Yeah, would you consider it exiting Full Gear or World's End? I think there's a conversation there, right?
You're absolutely right. I should say, let's say from World's End. MJF drops the title. That's the moment. You're right.
Yeah, there's a definite line of demarcation there. I think the MJF title reign ended on a sour note, we can say, right? Like, that pay-per-view was very, very good. It had one of the best AEW matches ever on it, with the Texas Death Match that we'll all never forget. But It's something I never thought I would have said maybe a year ago, that just getting that out of the way and then pivoting into what they built on during the Continental Classic into this build. They've never had a more focused build ever, period. It's just not ever been the case. And you throw on top of that the increased focus and attention on the women's division that has also never been in a spot that it's in right now, despite only having one women's card on the match. I think you're seeing 2 matches per show. You're seeing what's coming in a couple of weeks. I think it's a really exciting time. They've used the term "restore the feeling" quite a bit on social media, and they really have for me. I'm very invested in this company. It means a lot to me personally because it has fostered these relationships that I'm literally having right now. It's brought back that major American wrestling promotions don't have to treat me like a piece of shit, where I'm just an ATM and they truly want me to be unhappy. I relate that a lot to, like, if you ever watched the show Ozark on Netflix, terrible show that I watched. They had nothing but contempt for the people who watched the show. Nothing good is going to happen to anyone you like, period. And that's what the other company has been like since I can remember. And having a company come along and have some fuck ups, do some things wrong, try some stuff doesn't work, but to recognize that, listen, and get back on the right track is so fulfilling. It just feels good. And I want it to work long term. So I'm very homerish about it in a way I try to disguise as much as I can. So I'm thrilled. I'm so happy that we're here and everybody is unanimously just so excited about this card. Huge crowd. Last match of a legend who's been treated with the respect he deserves. Amazing build for title matches. Like, I just couldn't be in a better place with
well said.
right now.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Dan, do Slak's feelings echo your own? Has this been a restorative, rehabilitative, restoring of the feeling for you as well?
So I've had a bit of a different kind of path to AEW than you guys have. I didn't watch wrestling for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until my friends on Twitter, like Slak, like our friend Sam Fells, people would mention how great AEW was and how much fun they're having after years of being fed garbage by the other guys. And so one night my wife and daughter were out and I threw on Rampage because I did not know it was taped because it was just on. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot of fun. And that was, I guess, 2020, I think, cool. Summer of 2020. And I kind of didn't just kind of dip my toe in until finally January of 2021, I guess it was I was a full-on watcher at that point, and I watched Orange Cassidy versus Adam Cole, and that was the Danhausen debut. And people went completely bananas for this guy. And I was like, what is weird? And that was like my I'm hooked moment. And I started buying the pay-per-views and everything. So, for me, the old feeling I never really had because I didn't watch during the pandemic. I didn't watch the first All In and that kind of stuff. But I was at World's End, and there was definitely a feeling at the time was, of course, at the historic Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, Long Island. And there was a feeling of like, I don't know about some of this. Some of it's good. The Mox Eddie match was really good. Edge versus Christian was really good. Some of it not so good. And people wanted something new. I think people were about ready to, okay, thank you, Max. You can go on vacation now. Thank you, Joe. This is great. We all love Joe. Now what's next? We want to see something new. And I think what's great about Revolution, and we talked about this, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this throughout this whole show, is that there are so many different ways that these matches can go. There are really very few wrong answers with any of them. That's what excites me. Like, there's just so much, like, even if I pick somebody who I think is going to win the match and I'm wrong, that's okay, because something cool could come of that. Some new title reign could happen and we can see them go in a direction we hadn't thought of before. So to me, it's more of a refresh. Like, it had gotten a little stale, and now Revolution is going to refresh everything as people want it.
I actually like refresh a lot as a way to look at this, because my brain's busted. Like, no one should listen to me talk about this stuff at all, because AEW for me, when Slak talks about it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Slak, but being a part of his identity or something he really cheers for, that's something I very much share and relate to. And beyond that, just pro wrestling the world is something I like to think about a lot and obviously talk about a lot. However, around World's End and the build to there and moments from Full Gear, the Jay White feud with MJF, the Four Pillars feud before that, but that's a little disconnected. I felt like I was sort of trying to convince myself that the stuff I liked was good enough to supersede the stuff I didn't like, because I don't think of myself as a very negative person towards AEW in general. But there was definitely just this murkiness, I feel like, and a rise at once of a bunch of things I don't like. And then I felt like I was losing my mind because there's a bunch of people that I like or I talk to like, oh no, I still think this is fine. And it isn't that different. And to me, I'm just like, please don't let this, we have to defend this. And them being back in, I don't even know that I feel as back as peak AEW for me. But if they stayed at this quality forever, I'll never stop watching. And that's really all I ever want. I love the never-ending cycle of pro wrestling. I find it comforting to my brain. I like to know that no matter how the week's going, I can plop down on the couch on Wednesday, turn on something live that I'm mostly going to enjoy involving characters that can age out to their 60 and still be sort of relevant. I find peace in that.
Yeah,
So,
and quickly just to add to that too, I think Dan and myself, I know we've lived and died, mostly died by professional sports. Having this be something that you can put on and feel like, even if my guy loses, it's not bad. It's entertaining most of the time.
Yeah.
So you don't walk away from a show thinking my team sucked. I just wasted 2.5 hours of my life and I'm pissed. Like you would if your team stinks, which the ones I root for, and I'm pretty sure Dan feels the same way, typically stink.
Absolutely.
so having something like this that every week something different happens, someone gets hurt, someone steps up. It's great. And I'm thankful for it. So yeah.
I'm thankful too. And I'm thankful to be doing this with you guys. Let's get into it. Revolution this Sunday, like you pointed out, from Greensboro, Sting's last match. We're going to open with that match and we're going to talk about it first. And before we talk about the build, our predictions, I want to ask a very rudimentary question. I'll go to you here first, Dan, but Slak, I want your answer on this too. Where on the card is Tony Khan going to put Sting and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, for the AEW tag team titles?
I'm probably going to be wrong, but to me, it's got to be last. Like they're going to have a whole long, I mean, you know how when they win the Super Bowl and there's like streamers and confetti and, you know, whoever, there's like a million sideline reporters and they're all rushing the field. Isn't that kind of what it's going to be like when that match ends? Like, I don't know, you know, and then you're going to make Samoa Joe, Hangman Page, and Swerve Strickland go on after that. That to me seems a little crazy. Like I'm just expecting a 15 to 20 minute long ovation for Sting as he has earned. So to me, that's the way it's got to be. But I'm not Tony Khan, so I don't know. But you know, I'm sure. I mean, I'll throw it right to you guys. I guess I'll throw it right to Slak. Like, has there ever been a situation? I mean, obviously, guys have retired before. Can you guys think of a situation similar to this where a guy's known retirement match also was on a card that also had a big main event kind of attached to it?
HBK
Josh,
and Flair isn't
yeah.
the main of the Mania it's on, I don't
There you
think.
go. That's a good one.
So there's that one. But I think your point largely stands, Dan. I'm thinking for the exceptions. I think that's true. And for the record, I'd be putting this on last. Even if Sting's losing, I would put this on last. So Slak, where do you think it's going?
Yeah, it has to be last or second to last. I've seen like some of the hints. They had that shirt that was released talking about how the title match will be the main event. Josh and I have talked about this many Mondays about WBCW. Like your main title has to main event a show for the most part. Also, if I'm thinking about like from the perspective of a very large crowd who's mostly there to see Sting, you don't put him on first because people will probably leave. Like you have to save it towards the end. I would love it for it to be last. If it's second to last, that's going to be trouble. What I really don't want to see is that it's third to last and then your women's match is your cool off, which they do not deserve to be put in that spot. That's what I'm a little concerned about. And these are minor concerns. They're not like, you know, ruining my life or anything. I also wonder if Sting, he seems very much like, I didn't want the tag titles to begin with. I don't want to be necessarily hogging up the spotlight from everyone else. Maybe he does, like, as a traditionalist, maybe he wants the title to be the main event. There's a lot of things running through my brain that I'm just not sure how they're going to do this. My guess is last or second to last. Like Dan said, I think I envision, and spoiler alert, I envision Sting losing, potentially even getting pinned. for the first time in AEW, which would be shocking in a cool way. But once that match is over, I can see Tony Khan having the entire roster come on the stage and do like a round of applause and like a bunch of video stuff and just let him soak it in while he takes his time exiting the ring. And that's going to suck up a lot of energy that if you have to go on after it is going to be a real challenge, even though the main event by all means is white hot. So super interesting question. I guess I don't know.
This is why I agree with you guys, though. That's the off-air visual. It just has to be. Like the pay-per-view is about Sting. We're in the place that's going to celebrate him the hardest. Ric Flair's there. From what Lex Luger's going to be there. There's going to be some other luminaries we imagine. Maybe a roster call of the baby faces. Who knows? I just don't know how you do any of that anywhere on the card outside of the main event. And I don't think that Sting losing, this is what I keep seeing on the Twitter timeline, is like, well, Sting's losing. You can't send the crowd home unhappy. It's like, oh yeah, there's no way to get heat back after a wrestling match. If only there was some way for a guy to lose. And I mean, he can pop up, no sell the finish. The Bucks, it's a bunch of interference stuff. He starts wailing on everybody. He's clearing house. Some of the luminaries, you can still make this giant moment where Sting still goes out on his back. So let's get to official predictions. You said it there, Slak. I think you do have the Young Bucks winning. We'll go to Dan.
Yep.
Are you agreeing, disagreeing? Who do you have winning this match and being your new AEW Tag Team Champions?
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be the Young Bucks again, because again, the traditionalism of losing on your own. By the way, just so to point out, I was also at Full Gear in Newark, I guess 2022, and that was when MJF won, beat Moxley.
Yep.
The crowd was all for MJF the entire time. I guess a lot of people came out from the island to cheer on their boy. And then when it was over, Mox got a huge round of applause. People chanting, "Thank you, Moxley." Didn't matter that he lost. Like, people love Mox, right? So it was fine. But but yeah, I feel like they need to win. Sting probably should lose. And I think what'll be kind of cool. I mean, listen, we've all seen the Young Bucks as AEW Tag Champions forever, but like not these Young Bucks. And I think the EVPs having the titles opens up an entirely new chapter of assholery that these guys can get into, lording this around and going, and then then they would make feuds with guys like FTR and other people that they've fought before different, because these are different kinds of Young Bucks. So I wouldn't feel too bad if Sting lost, but then again, maybe he wants to. Maybe Tony Khan's like, no, you're winning, and Sting is like, no, I don't want to win. So we don't know how it goes, but I could totally see the Young Bucks kind of winning. But I think it'll be a good match either way.
If Sting wins, I actually think it's probably what you're saying at the end there, Dan, which is Tony wants him as part of some AEW gold lineage,
right?
And having Sting and Darby as your tag team champions as part of that belt's history is undeniably cool. I see a lot of ideas floated that it would just then they vacate and it becomes a tournament. That's not that interesting to me. Yeah. I don't like title vacations, but I think when you're doing a retirement for a wrestler of the level of Sting, rules barely matter, because we're talking about a situation that's so rare that it's not what you're writing the rule book by. So if Sting and Darby win, it's actually what I would prefer to happen here. I don't think the Young Bucks need establishing. I agree that them being bad guys now is going to have the freshened up top of the card feel, but they just don't need making at all. They just, no part of them needs to be the team that beats Sting. And I think that they've done a good job of making me want to see Sting kick their asses. And I know you guys know this, but for anybody watching this, who it's like, the legend, you go out on your back. That is a nice thing that the Undertaker said in a DVD 10 years ago, and he didn't even do it. Like, there's so few of these guys actually do it. Now, Sting does seem like the sort of guy who will do it, but the idea that it's like, oh yeah, that class of wrestler always goes out on their back, it's simply not real. Some of them do, but lots of them don't.
Well, something you said, Josh, earlier this week, I can't remember where you said it, but retirement in wrestling just isn't real. It's just not a thing. Like, you always come back at some point for something. There's
never been one. That's not me being a smart guy. I've never seen a retired wrestler.
You mentioned Flair's retirement match, which was how many fucking years ago? He's literally involved in this match.
Yeah.
He got in the ring last night, threw 8 or 10 of the shittiest punches I've ever seen, and then got hit in the nuts.
Yeah.
They never go away, truly. And I don't want Sting to go away. If he shows up every once in a while, like if Darby's in a singles feud down the road and getting beat up and Sting shows up out of nowhere. That'll be so cool.
Perfect.
And to have that possibility is phenomenal. So
yeah. I will say that I am a little surprised that they didn't have Darby and Sting do like a couple of matches on Dynamite or Collision, the way they went with the Young Bucks. I'm not complaining, it's fine, but I'm surprised we didn't see like them versus, I don't know, maybe not FTR, but one of these other guys, like, you know.
My take is
like that.
you just don't want Sting getting hurt before this
That's exactly why,
show.
yeah, definitely.
You know, but
yeah.
Again,
and at that age, I suppose that's on the table. Also, staying with his father passing recently, and then Darby was alluding to some even the worse stuff. But I still agree. I would have liked to have seen them in tag action more because the idea, you think about them as contemporaries visually, you know, this gothic crow adjacent thing, but they're also stuntmen at this point in this career. Like they would be a hoot to watch for their in-ring chemistry. So I am actually picking them to pick up the win.
Cool.
I don't know who picks up the pin. I'll say, oh man, the coffin drop is such a good, like you can see the death drop and then the coffin drop, or you could see the death drop and then the lock. So I don't know. Let's say Sting gets the tap on Nick Jackson, but I'm an odd man out here, but hoping this is our main event. Let's move on to the international title scene where Orange Cassidy has been on his second reign. There's been some chatter about it being sort of similar to the first. He's broken down. I think everybody still likes Orange Cassidy, but he's here against Roderick Strong, somebody who I think is the opposite side of the coin, whose work largely has not been enjoyed and is in this position, but has been vacant from the television, sort of a tonal opposite from Orange Cassidy in those ways. Talk a little bit about the build here, Dan, and give me a pick at the end of it. Are you excited for this match, and do you see the title switch happening here?
Before I answer that question, I just have to say one thing really quick. So Orange Cassidy is my favorite person on this entire roster.
Awesome.
If it wasn't for Orange Cassidy, I wouldn't be here talking to you fine gentlemen. I would not be part of Wrestling Brain. I wouldn't be watching AEW. Again, I stopped watching wrestling in the late 90s. I used to watch ECW fairly regularly. And I know Josh was a big ECW guy, you know, regularly meant whenever it popped on some night of the week and some bullshit, you know, channel. My parents had Dish Network back then. And so like we had all these weird sports channels from all over the place. And so it would just pop up. But that was it. And so I didn't watch wrestling for like 20 years. And then I saw a lot of friends saying this is great. And I watched this guy. And to me, as much as I love the art form of it and grew up with it, going to the Nassau Coliseum, I saw, you know, Macho Man Savage at the Coliseum and all that kind of stuff. I didn't think there was anything new. I just thought it was like guys kind of recycling a lot of the same old gimmicks, just a little bit differently. And here's this guy in jeans and a denim jacket wrestling with his hands in his pockets and like, you know, with sunglasses on. And, you know, at that point he came out to the Pixies, which was like, what is that? And I just love this whole thing. And like my favorite movie is This Is Spinal Tap. I just love it. I've watched it. I've had my daughter watch it. She didn't really get it, but I love that it's, you know, it's obviously a parody, but it is made with a lot of love towards rock and metal, and these guys get it. Like they're making fun of this while also being like, how awesome would this be to be like that? To me, that's what Orange Cassidy is. He's a parody of professional wrestling by a guy who loves it and is really good at it. Like, you know, people forget Spinal Tap. They play their own songs and wrote their own songs. So like when people are like, oh, he's such a joke, I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? This guy loves more pro wrestling probably way more than you do because he can do this. Like he's parodying it so perfectly. It's crazy.
Anyway. Love everything you said there, Dan. Totally agree. I'd never really thought of the framing of that before. In the same vein, I'm actually reminded of Jack White. I think people probably know the White Stripes, talking in that documentary It Might Get Loud they did years ago about how he hates seeing people who suck break the rules. You have to be really good and understand all the rules and play by them and then start to tweak them. And I feel like, again, running with your allegory there, which I think is very strong, that's also, I feel like, what Orange Cassidy is doing. Because he is, when he kicks in, it's like, oh, he can make no mistake. He's not doing this because he can't wrestle. No. He has chosen to limit himself to extend his career.
Yes.
And there's a lot at play with him that is so good.
I've also heard that analogy, by the way, used for Prince, a guy who broke all the rules because he was so good at everything that he could, because he knew all the rules better than anybody else. That being said, when it comes to this match, I feel like Orange Cassidy probably has to lose because this is his second reign. I've enjoyed the vast majority of these matches. I thought the first reign was a lot better. I didn't think he would have it as long as he did. And by the end of it, I was just like, this is the greatest thing I think I've ever seen. You know, it's just so much fun. Every match is great. Everything is different. He's putting himself on the line, and he was wrestling 3-4 guys at once. He's winning battle royals with like, shin kick or whatever, like light kick to swerve to knock him off the rope. So I had a blast with it. I thought it was great, but I feel like we need, again, a bit of a refresh here. Do I want to see Roderick Strong win the international championship? No, frankly, I don't. But I think it would open up a lot of possibilities. It would change things up for Orange, which would be great. But also the other thing too is like, I know we're not huge fans of the Undisputed Kingdom here, but like they came out with the expressed purpose of winning all of these belts. And this is their first time out, like testing this theory. And if they come out and lose, then they just look like a big bunch of dorks. So I don't know if they're going to do it that way. So I can't see, maybe it might be through cheating or something, but I feel like Orange Cassidy is going to lose here. And Roderick Strong will win. But because the other thing too is if Orange wins, then who's left? Like, I don't know what's left for him to do. I don't really know what else there is, maybe Okada. I don't know. But,
hey, no problem with that. Inter-chaos warfare. Slak, where's your head at on this one? Do you see any way that Orange Cassidy pulls out the win here? Are you feeling this is one of the more set results on the card, that Roderick Strong's your likely new champ?
I think this feels like the second most likely. Well, okay, I take that back. The third most likely outcome. See, it seems like the third most obvious outcome to me. Yes, I do think Orange Cassidy's going to lose here. I think it's AEW, one of the things they do well for the most part is listen to people, and maybe it takes longer than some people would like. I do think that these belts, TNT and International, should be more transitioned than they are. I think they should be exchanging hands on TV more often than they do. That said, it absolutely makes no sense for the Undisputed Kingdom to come out here and lose a match. They already look dead. Most people have written them off the minute they showed up. And you clearly are still running with this thing for whatever purpose that they have in mind down the road with Adam Cole whenever he feels like he's healthy again. You can't like kill this thing more dead than it already is. I do think they've done some good things. The Taven Orange Cassidy death match was awesome, very over delivered. And I think Rod Strong, for people who don't like him, I think that's fine. I don't have the same level of distaste for him as others. I don't.
Me neither. I think he's okay.
But, yeah, he's okay, but he is really good at wrestling. He's a very good pro wrestler.
Do we know that?
What's that?
That he's a great pro wrestler?
Well, did I said very good, or
good. Very good. I think that we know that for sure in 2015. I don't see any evidence of it lately.
We're going to find out because he's probably going to win, and I'm sure there's going to be tons of shenanigans, chaos. You've got the Undisputed Kingdom running in there as well. I don't know if, I'm expecting Adam Cole to eventually do like he's on the crutches or he's in the wheelchair and all of a sudden he's completely fine. I don't think that'll be this weekend. Does Chuck Taylor miraculously heal up and show up? That's something for Josh right there. It's a possibility. I'd love to see Chuck, but Roderick Strong is a good plan B to get that title, run with it, have TV matches that should be decent. And we'll see how that goes, but I do think he's going to win. So that's where I'm at.
I agree with you guys. And I'm more poking there. Roderick Strong hasn't done anything in AEW that I even approaches something I enjoy. It's counting on he is the guy from his past, which isn't exactly, it's not ancient. I think there's no reason to think he isn't still a good in-ring wrestler. He got a collision match, a singles against somebody good that I remember watching and thinking, this is fine. I wish I could remember. But I remember being like, yeah, I don't know. The guy who the flying armbar was Zack Sabre Jr. in PWG or all these moments in OXT. Like I would like to see some evidence of that guy. And frankly, with the Undisputed fellas, I'm nervous that it's just all going to be run-ins and even that part of him won't get to shine. So maybe I'm being negative for nothing. We'll see how it plays out. I just feel down on the whole act, and Roderick Strong isn't being the version of him that I like. It's like thinking of him being good involves thinking of him being something totally different than what he's shown me in the last, whatever it is, 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
I do still find the yelling names funny. I don't know why. Maybe that's just me. I find it funny when he does that, but that's a personal thing.
Up next here, the women's title is on the line. It's Timeless Toni Storm versus Deonna Purrazzo and Slak. I'm going to go to you here first. And who says it better than you? Can you talk a little bit about Deonna Purrazzo in AEW so far? What have been your impressions? Did you know much about her before? Were you familiar with her? talk about Deonna Purrazzo.
Yeah, I'm pretty wary of Impact talent in general. I don't know why. I don't like anything about the way they present wrestling. It just looks small time, and that sucks to say because they're all good wrestlers for the most part, or they're trying their best.
That doesn't suck to say. I think everyone's seen TNA over the last decade.
Yeah, it's unwatchable for me. I don't know why. I just cannot watch it. Dan, I think, has had a similar experience. He's tried.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah, and she's probably like, that doesn't mean a wrestler from TNA can't come here and be something more. She was very close to signing with New York, I think at some point recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and didn't, or she did and got cut, I think is what it was.
That's what it was. Yeah, I think NXT didn't see anything in her.
Yeah, and she looks back at that as the best thing that's ever happened to her. She was able to kind of thrive at Impact TNA and kind of put on a nice title run. I saw her in AAA a little bit at some point. I was watching that, and she was defending that belt as well. I didn't have super high expectations for her coming to AEW, and a lot of the chatter from in the Discord and around Wrestling Brain was that overall, I would say we're not the biggest fans of Deonna Purrazzo. That being said, since she got here, I think she's been pretty damn good. The matches have been okay. I think she's been paired with some of the lesser talented women in the division on TV, which if I were booking, I wouldn't have put her against like Kiera Hogan, for example. I would have put her against one of the more capable women in the locker room. But the build to this match, her involvement in it has been almost exceptional. I would say this is the best built women's title match on a pay-per-view that they've ever had. And that's not to say it's the two best wrestlers in a title match they've ever had, but this is the best build when it comes to telling a story, connecting these two women who've known each other for a long time. I'm really excited to see it. I genuinely don't think there's a low floor to this match. The question is, how high can they hit? So the question was about Deonna. I would say for me, she's over-delivered, and I think she has the chance to cement herself with a lot of people as, okay, Deonna's not so bad. That's where I'm at. I think she has a chance to really turn some opinions around, and I think they've done a good job setting her up to do that.
Dan, I see you nodding along about the TNA comments, so I want to give you a chance to get in there about the TNA stink. I think is something that people have been familiar with in wrestling for better or worse reasons. But then I do also want you, if you don't mind, talking a little bit about, even with considering that a bit, what Deonna's been for you, because I find myself also agreeing with Slak that I was probably even a bigger hater than he was positing. And I think it's undeniable that she has something. It's tough for me to say exactly what is connecting with me. And I think the added focus that Slak is talking about on the division on whole, and Mercedes coming and Mariah May feeling like a star ready to pull the trigger on in some ways. But I think she has something, and I would push her too. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, when it comes to TNA, we switched to DirecTV Stream about a year or so ago, and that's how I ended up seeing it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to check this out. You know, when the nights when AEW is not on, and yeah, it's not good. You know, so every once in a while you see a cool match. Speedball Bailey's pretty cool when he does those kicks. So he's like doing those like speed kick things. That's pretty cool. But you know, you see some people that kind of flamed out someplace else, and you're like, oh, that's all right. So it's not a total loss, but they're like Slak was saying, it feels very low rent. It feels very like this is not good. And you know, the impact zone, I think, has a lot to do with that. It seems like, you know, a warehouse somewhere.
The former Tom Phillips, whatever his name is now, announcing really does not do them any favors.
No.
That guy he reminds me of bad WWE, and it just stinks listening to him call wrestling. I can't describe why I hate it so much, but it is so bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just described one of the reasons why I don't watch New York wrestling, because of the commentary is absolutely terrible. And then like the backstage segments all have this sort of like,
oh God,
bad direct video horror movie kind of look to them. And it's like, I don't want this. So, but Deonna was somebody that I thought struck me as like, she looks like she's pretty good. I remember seeing her on a Dark once, and she was like, you know, local talent. I don't know where they filmed that one, but I was like, oh, I remember this lady. And you know, she's got this great presentation of the virtuosa, and I think it's pretty neat. You know, I don't know how to say this in an I guess a respectful way. I guess I'll try and say it, but like, I think part of Deonna's problem is the look isn't quite there. Like she's kind of short on the shorter side. She's not like a Jade Cargill, like, you know, she's like cut out of granite. She's obviously not like a Mariah May type who's all like gorgeous and no offense to Deonna, she's a very pretty lady, but like, you know, she does not have the same kind of look that Mariah May does. And so I think that kind of leads to a little bit of trepidation of like, oh, what can she do? But I think she's been good too. I think her and Serena Deeb, I feel like are kind of cut from the same cloth. Like they've got that same sort of technical, they've been building this up, this technical wrestling kind of thing. And I think with a lot more rope and a lot more time, I think with the right opponents, I think Deonna will be a real asset to AEW. I think she'd be a cool like mid-card person. As far as this match goes, I think it'll be great. I think whenever you pair up two people who know each other as well as these two do in like real life, it's either going to be a great match or it's going to be a terrible match. And I feel like, the Eddie Mox match we talked about a little while ago was great. Those guys have known each other forever. Claudio, Eddie is always great. Give me a million of those. They're always great because they've known each other forever. So I have high hopes for this. I think it'll be good. I am still very much into the timeless Tony gimmick. I love it. I don't know, maybe it's because I like old movies. Now she's like turning into the Joker or something after the matches. She's got the lipstick going and she's kind of losing her mind even more. So, I just, earlier today in the Discord, I said I can see Deonna winning, and I still kind of could, but at the same time, like maybe this is just sort of a thing for Tony to do, and then she'll lose either to Mariah or somebody else later on, and they can unleash Deonna someplace else. But I think Deonna will be pretty good, and I think at the very worst, she could go down to ROH and basically replace Athena for what she's been, who's also very much in the same cloth. Like, she doesn't look like she's going to be great, but she turns out she's great because she's a shit-eating wild woman, as we've talked about. She's willing to do anything. So, I do like Deonna. I just, I think the match will be good, but I'm afraid that my hopes might be getting too high, and it's going to end up being kind of meh. That's what I would hate for them. Like Slak said, I would hate for them to have like a meh match on a sick card, and there's, that's more idiots like, oh, they suck. This is why you don't, we don't need that. That's terrible.
I also am still more into the timeless Tony act than I thought I would be.
Yep.
However, in ring, she needs to be a bit more Tony Storm against Deonna Purrazzo than timeless Tony, I think. If this match is going to work, if we're going to give Deonna Purrazzo the best chance to look good, which is presumably going to be in a more technical, ground-based, Tony Storm is one of the women on the roster who can absolutely dance that dance.
Definitely.
And if she is willing to sort of activate, and you mentioned Serena Deeb as a possible opponent for Deonna Purrazzo, and I actually like that a lot because Deeb has some aggressiveness in her grappling that it's reminiscent of grapplers that I like across all different styles of combat sports, so like jumping on submissions and like torquing on stuff. And I think that innate sort of attack from Deonna Purrazzo is maybe something that I would make me enjoy watching her work a bit more. But Tony Storm feels like somebody who could bring that out of her. Things could get aggressive and a little I don't know. I feel like they're dynamic. Were she wrestling the outsider Tony Storm or whatever you would call before that
please.
Stone Zero Tony Storm, I would really think that there's an opportunity for this to be great. I can just think of some recent timeless Tony Storm matches where a lot of it is break in action, a call, like some sort of joke moment with Luther.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead, Slak.
No, I mean, I think there's a couple things that come to mind when I think about guessing how this is going to go. One of the things that I can't get out of my mind was the little pan she used in her last title defense on pay-per-view to like cheat with, and then it fell down her shorts and it was hanging out of her leg, and it just looks stupid. You're right. She's said you wanted the old Tony Storm. You're going to get the old Tony Storm, and I hope she makes good on that promise. In ring, I do really have a lot of interest in seeing if they kick off the Mariah May stuff here. Whether I
think they will.
So my prediction is Tony's going to retain. I don't think Deonna's ready to be champion right now. I don't think it would be a good idea to make her champion right now. But I could see Mariah May screwing up, hitting Tony by accident, which leads to like a really good bite on a false finish or a visual pin where nobody's looking. And then obviously she'll come back, win the match. And then you can really kick off the Mariah May stuff because I'm dying for that to start. I really, really want Mariah to be in the ring wrestling. What we've seen is fantastic. So that's what I'm hoping to see out of this match, as much as a good match that is capable of, just deserving its spot on the card. So I'm excited about it. I think, again, a lot of these matches on this card have a theme of, I can't wait to see what they do after the match. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon.
I have to love entering a pay-per-view with that.
Oh,
But unfortunately, we are boringly all in agreement. Tony Storm going to defend successfully here. I would be outright surprised, I think, to see Mariah May interference here. I think she just, interference against Tony. I think she's very likely.
I don't mean like on purpose. I meant like,
oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a miscombobulation.
Totally.
I think she stays aligned with Tony here. They beat Diana. And then once Mercedes is there, I feel like that's sort of how they're going to protect Tony from her losing to Mercedes as soon as Mercedes arrives. Because I think that's happening. I don't even know if they'll wait to the next pay-per-view for Mercedes Moné to be holding their women's belt.
There are so many good routes. And the fact that there isn't one way that things can work is just what I think is making this all feel very exciting. So
definitely
well said.
I'm selfishly going to talk about this next one for a little bit here. It's Eddie Kingston. This is nasty of me to take one of the better matches here and just lead with it. This is a nasty play by me. Eddie Kingston defending his Continental Crown Championship against Bryan Danielson. Not only is the Continental Crown Championship on the line, if Bryan Danielson loses, he must shake Eddie Kingston's hand. This is the reason I'm leading off on this one, because I'm the only person on earth who cares about this. You can't do this to Ring of Honor. You can't. That's all they have, the handshake. You can't. Out of Ring of Honor, where I mean, I know all the titles are melted into this one, so I suppose he's carrying the Ring of Honor World title in essence with this. But I just think that's so funny that like the Code of Honor maybe being it's a one-way street here though. If Bryan wins, Eddie doesn't have to shake his hand. I'm very pumped for this. Eddie Kingston versus the Blackpool Combat Club has just been a winning formula at every turn. Him and Jon Moxley, one of my favorite feuds in the company. Him and Claudio Castagnoli was my feud of last year and match of the year. Eddie Kingston is my favorite living wrestler, I think, or favorite active wrestler, maybe a way to say it. I think that's true. He's up there. Joe's right up there too. Maybe Joe edges him. Anyway, he's right up there. And when you put him in the ring against these guys who are also serious, it's great because these are four people, discounting Wheeler Yuta here, adding in Eddie Kingston, who treat wrestling incredibly seriously. If not for one other match on this card, this would be the match that I'm most excited for. Result aside, just to see the thing play out. I cannot wait for this, even though we've seen it before. I'll throw to you here, Dan. Are you as pumped for Eddie Kingston versus Bryan Danielson as I am?
I'm pumped for every Eddie Kingston match. I love Eddie. I really do. And his story, again, having not started AEW when he did, it was so compelling to me that this guy has been in wrestling for so long and is only now getting finally, pay-per-view matches and regular TV appearances. And it's just awesome. I'm very excited for this. Their styles are so different. The super cerebral tree hugging Danielson versus, the combat boot wearing Eddie Kingston. I just love it. I think these guys can wrestle forever as far as I know. And they're just, I'll enjoy it every single time. Am I crazy, or did they say last time that all three belts are up for this? Is it just the Continental belt?
You are not crazy. So that belt, I don't think, unless, as far as I know, I don't think Eddie's ever going to defend them separately. I think it is the Continental Crown Championship is those three belts.
All three of them.
Okay. Although, as I say this aloud, I wouldn't die on this hill, and that's kind of crazy that like our favorite active wrestler. It's like I think this is how that works. But
I thought about it last night when I thought they said that. I was like, well, if it's all three of them, then there's no way Danielson wins this. Then it's got, he's not going to just walk out with three belts. That's kind of sounds ridiculous. But if it's just for the one, then maybe he does. But I kind of think Eddie wins anyway, and I just think Danielson doesn't shake his hand and walks out. And I think it'll be a great match, and I think it'll just prolong the whole, Eddie Kingston versus BCC blood feud that's been going on for a long time. And again, just like Slak said, just like we've been saying this whole time, there's no wrong answer. One guy wins, it's great, and we just move on to the next thing, which I'm sure will be really cool too. I mean, there's really no way you could lose here.
Who's winning, Torque Penderloin?
Oh boy, I want, this is like antithetical to what Dan said, but I want Bryan Danielson to win.
Cancel this guy.
Let's get, I love Eddie
cancel
Kingston.
Culture come for this guy.
I love Eddie Kingston as much as anybody else, and I think it's more fun when Eddie is a loser and chasing, and he's pissed, and he's got to look inward and figure some shit out. I also just I was very surprised about the finish to the 6-man tag on Wednesday, but seeing Bryan Danielson just brutally choke Eddie out, it's so satisfying when he does that to people. I love the way he wins matches because it's ruthless and it's brutal. And I know they're telling a story that, to me, I cannot get the old trope out of my head of the guy who's left standing tall before the match is the guy who loses at the pay-per-view. I don't think AEW like holds true to that as often as people think. If you were to go back and chart every
They
go
don't.
home
We
show,
did it on the
they
show
don't.
on Double Dudes for a couple pay-per-views. It's not
It's not.
1-to-1. I think it still was it happened more often than not, but there were
Sure.
plenty of times it didn't happen.
But I think this match is going to be amazing. It's going to be fantastic. Just think about what Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks did at All Out in Chicago with no time to prep in a strap match. Bryan Danielson goes, I'm going to do this match because CM Punk left, and we're going to beat the fucking shit out of each other, and it's going to be amazing. And it was amazing. This
That's
is a
gotta be
match
one of
they've
the
been preparing
best-
for. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was gonna say that has to be one of the best matches that nobody talks about.
I
That
know.
was such a good match. It was crazy.
It was insane. And
Right.
and they're going to lay it in hard all match long. I can't wait to see this. I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I predict Eddie will win. I want Danielson to win because I think in his last tour as a full-time wrestler, to have him take that crown, Continental crown around and defend it against whoever from any promotion feels very good. And then, like I said, with Eddie, it's like, as long as they don't drop the ball with Eddie, which I don't think they will now, they know what they have in him. And another thing I'll say as a side note, Eddie Kingston is a reason why AEW is fantastic, because without AEW, we're not seeing this guy
Yes.
come to his potential, because you're never going to see a guy like that get hired at New York who looks like him, who fights like him. It just would never, ever happen. And
Or
so,
they would never let him do his thing
No.
if he did somehow
No.
get there.
Yeah.
right. You could see him on maybe old Black and Gold or something. I could maybe see him there, but I still think just the way he is and the kind of guy he is and the stuff he struggles with just wouldn't work in that company. And he would see through that bullshit and just, he would be so miserable. He'd quit or he'd get fired on purpose.
True.
Regardless, I am so pumped for this. I think Eddie in defeat, I think him not getting the respect and not getting the handshake that he feels like he deserves is good and feels good. Keep this going because it's just so perfectly distilled Eddie Kingston. And yeah, it's a winner no matter what happens. I'm excited, but I'll predict Eddie wins, but I want Danielson to win.
Slak and I on the exact opposite sides of this coin. I am picking Bryan Danielson to win this match, cheering for Eddie Kingston. I have a theory based on nothing. Do you guys mind if I have a theory based on nothing?
I want to hear it.
Love it.
Yes.
I have a theory that despite being more injury prone in AEW, Bryan Danielson is healthier than Eddie Kingston is right now. And Eddie is more injured than we know.
Probably.
Every promo of Eddie's, and maybe I'm just getting worked, which is, Lord knows it wouldn't be the first or last time. But Eddie Kingston is constantly talking about how hard it is to have these belts and how he was already worn down from the Cruiserweight Classic and that his body isn't what it once was. And then you combine that with, it's the only explanation for how inactive he's been is that the travel, or when he was New Japan Strong champion going back and forth. I can't understand how he wasn't on TV more last year. So I think Eddie might be beaten up a bit, and we see him working out with Cesar Bononi. That's something people do. Okay, I'll put on some mask, this sort of thing. So I don't know. I think that there's a very real chance that that what Slak said is true, that Bryan's going to carry these belts around in a bunch of dream matches for his retirement year. And really, Eddie's story was more about winning the Continental Classic than it was being this dominant champion, was what I've written down here. So I am actually picking
That's
Bryan
a great
Danielson
point.
to pick up the win.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's
I
a
think
great
that
point
way.
right there. Eddie shouldn't be on top too long. That's not the kind of wrestler he is. Like, dominant champion Eddie Kingston makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
So I love it. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Glad you said it.
Up next here. Oh, I'm excited for this one. It's the first match for Will Ospreay in AEW as a full-timer, as a full-time talent. We have Will Ospreay. And if you made a short list of people I want to see him wrestle in the company, the gentleman he's wrestling is top 2 on it, I think.
Yes.
Like, it's not far down the list until you find the name Konosuke Takeshita. Well, I mean, you won't find that name anywhere on it, but you will find the name Konosuke Takeshita on there. And I am just starving for this one. Even this story could be even worse than it was, and it doesn't matter to me. I just want to see these two wrestle in a very non-feud way. There's nothing they could do to ruin this one for me. Dan, is this your most anticipated in-ring match of the night, or is it at least up there? Who do you think's going to win, and are you excited for this one?
It is up there. I am excited for it. I've been excited for Will Ospreay. I know it keeps coming back to Orange Cassidy for me, but I remember Forbidden Door 1, I believe it was. He and Orange Cassidy put on an absolutely incredible match that I thought might have been my match of the year.
I was in the building for that one. It was unreal.
Unreal. Incredible.
Shibata comes out right after too.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this very much. Yeah, I think we're all about done with the Don Callis family and the whole thing, but Callis remains a heat magnet, which is great. And I think it's going to be, I mean, again, Takeshita has absolutely everything going for him, so I can't wait. My thing is, and you talked about this off the top, Slak, like you're kind of like most expected, I guess outcomes. To me, I don't see any way Takeshita wins this match at all. I think it's Ospreay all the way. And then Callis comes in, he's like, what do you think you're doing? And then we get our break, and then, we're off and running that way. So although I think that's the way it's going to play out, I don't care, because I just want to see these two massive humans just wailing on each other for as long as possible, hopefully. Get to the 29th minute of a 30-minute time limit. I can imagine something like that. So I'm very excited. These guys are, I don't think Ospreay is probably the peak of what he was when you guys were watching him in New Japan, but he's pretty high up there, and I think this will be a great match.
How about you, Slak? Is this your likely match of the night?
No, it is up there. I'm excited about it too, and I think I've got Sting as my match of the night because I guarantee I'm going to cry during it or after it.
Nice. And
so that's that's like in a bar full of people. Hopefully my hands are covered in like spicy chicken sandwich dust because I'll burn my eyes.
This sounds like such a good night.
I know.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. But no, this is going to be amazing. There's no way it's not. I do think, Dan, something you said I do disagree with. This Will Ospreay is so much better than the one who was maybe doing all the 6-star matches like 4 or 5 years ago, because that one he was way more self-indulgent than he is now in a way that turned me off. He actually won me over in the last few years, maybe when he started taking this more seriously and putting New Japan on his back.
His matches were very samey before.
Oh, they were, and they were frustrating. A lot of like kickouts, a lot of just like, oh yeah, they're going to reverse all these things constantly, which they still are going to do. But his matches with Kenny Omega are two of my favorite matches that I've ever seen. The Orange Cassidy match, again, insane. I was there as well. And so him kicking off his AEW career against a guy who I love as much or more than any wrestler on the roster is about as good as it gets. Josh and I talked about this a little bit. I don't love Don Callis calling this match of the decade or whatever. That's too inside baseball for me. Like it's not, it shouldn't be, you shouldn't be saying they're going to put on a great match. It should be, they're going to try to kill each other to win. Obviously that's just
the
how
promoter can say it, but like the coach or like the guy who's in charge, it's like,
thank you. Exactly.
It's so bizarre. It just
weird.
Doesn't, if Slak and I were going to fight, and Dan's in your corner, which would be the smart money, let's face it. And Dan's in your corner, and I'm like, Slak, I'm gonna kick your ass. And Dan's like, oh yeah, I think you guys are gonna put on the best fight ever. It's like, well, is that even a threat?
I'm like, Josh, we're gonna go at it for a long time. And I'm gonna let you fight me, and then I'm gonna fight you. We'll go back and forth a lot. It's gonna be so sick.
Lots of offense and defense in both directions. Put her there, partner.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I think, like anything else, the Callis thing has just been murked by Kenny leaving, and then also just by inactivity. They haven't done shit. Adding Sammy was an awful decision. Subtracting him was great, but they didn't really do anything with that either.
Yeah.
And then Takeshita just hasn't wrestled much, which obviously is like, he's so good at it. Whatever. So there's a few things that I'm excited about for this match. One, correct. This is my number one most obvious outcome. Will Ospreay probably 99.9% is going to win this match. But I want to see where this goes afterwards. Ospreay obviously is not long for the Callis family. He was joking and laughing when he came out to the ring on Wednesday. He seems as happy as anyone's ever been, which is completely the opposite of what the Callis family is and is doing. Makes no sense for them to stay together. I want to see him kind of do his own United Empire, maybe poaching from Don Callis, and ending what is not going anywhere. So getting that like story out of where it is, and moving into more of an Ospreay versus maybe Callis or whatever it is, just getting him back into getting him settled into AEW with his own kind of faction. Maybe he gets back with Aussie Open. I don't know Kyle Fletcher's visa status or if Mark Davis is even healthy yet, but I don't hate seeing those guys together. I think that's a nice group. And then Takeshita needs to turn on Callis as well. And in kayfabe, at some point, when is Takeshita going to say, Don, you haven't done shit for me, man. Like, I'm not in any title matches. I'm not up the card. Like, yes, I've beaten some of the best wrestlers in the world, but then what? Nothing has happened for me. So I'm out on you. And Takeshita mega babyface Takeshita is still out there waiting to be maximized. And when that happens, my God, like, it is going to be incredible. So I hope that that's where we're going. I am very excited about the post match. The match itself is going to rip. So this is exciting. This is extremely cool. I cannot wait for this. It's going to be awesome.
First of all, I need you to be a consultant to Mr. Takeshita, if only so that he cuts that exact promo. Don, you haven't done shit for me, man. That's all. That's exactly what he should say, because it's real. And it would be so true. I must say, guys, maybe I'm being silly, but I don't see this as the lock for Will Ospreay that you two do.
I love that you think that. Let's hear why.
I think that this is pretty clearly, Don laid this out as the winner is likely to get a world title shot. I agree with that. I don't think you can put Will Ospreay immediately into the world title scene unless he's going to win it. I also think when feds bring in wrestlers from other federations, they don't necessarily want to put them over their guys right away. And I think Takeshita is a guy that could lose to the winner of the main event on television in a way that makes sense for their schedule. On top of that, Will needs a reason to exit the Callis family. That could be interference from Powerhouse Hobbs, a returning Kyle Fletcher, Don himself. I don't know. I probably lean Will Ospreay, but I don't find this one of the easier results. I could very much see Takeshita being the guy to put Ospreay in his place, and then it's the road for Ospreay to All In, to headlining Wembley for the world title, because I think that's where they want him to do it.
Yeah,
that's a ways away if he beats Takeshita on Sunday.
That makes a lot of sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense.
It's a very complex conversation when you start talking about the world title and fitting all the pieces into that conversation. That it's already crowded in a good way, but then if you add Ospreay, you add Okada, it's frankly very exciting if they continue doing what they've done with the belt since Joe won it. It's only good news for us. And if you're able to talk me into Takeshita winning, if Takeshita wins this match, I'll go crazy. Like, I'll be shocked in the best way. I'll be pumping my fist. And I think that's a super exciting outcome that I really had not honestly considered. So good stuff.
That all sounds great. I love when Takeshita does promos in Japanese. As long as he's doing that,
I do too.
I'm happy. I love it.
I would even extend that to just wrestlers in general. When they're speaking in their native tongue, I always find it better. That goes to Mexican wrestlers who are fired up in Spanish. Every Japanese wrestler, Asuka comes to mind, where it's like sometimes they would have her do these broken English promos, which she would do great too, and know when to fire up and all these sorts of things. But then in Japanese, it's like, I don't need to know what this woman's saying. She's about to buzzsaw someone. But
it sounds awesome. Whatever she's saying, it sounds awesome.
She's as fired up as anyone's ever been, and she's looking to kill. I get it. I'm not dumb. So, I like that across the board. The Blackpool Combat Club in action here. It's the team of John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli finishing the fight against Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. FTR, no titles on the line, just a tag team match. I think this is absolutely a match of the night contender. Yep. I like the sort of preview of it in the 6-man format we got on Wednesday. Slak, will go to you here. Who's winning? And do you think that the winning team of this will remain in the tags or will be relevant in the tag scene immediately?
I think it's fun that so far you've challenged all the long held kind of beliefs I have going into this match or this card. And in this one, I would be surprised if BCC won. I think I agree. The reason why is based on the Bucks actually talking very openly about making this go back to the mission statement of AEW and making tag team wrestling important. And it seems like putting the straps on them or whatever's going to happen with the titles after Darby and Sting are done doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't have a hot FTR involved in some way or another, and getting this win kind of lends to that. I think this match is going to be amazing. I think they had a very excellent 20-minute TV draw that left still a lot of meat on the bone. I think it's going to be extremely bloody. I hope it is. I'm really hoping for a lot of color in this match. I'm shocked there's no stip. Would have loved to see a dog collar, but
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. Shocking.
I do think that is, you could go back to that. You could do that in a couple of weeks on TV. You could, I think not having that on this card is probably a good thing, right? I think this card has got a lot going for it. You throw in a dog collar match between 4 of the greatest living wrestlers and one of the greatest, if not the greatest active tag team. It might be overstuffed. So I think this will be really bloody, really, really violent. I have FTR winning, and then focus on the tag team division as a whole. Like, let's really get defined tag teams that are not just slapped together, and let's really make this thing sing. So that's where my head's at for this one.
Dan, do you share that as your pick? Would you go lean FTR? And if yes, where's your appetite for FTR Bucks 4 or whatever it would be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I have any particular pick. It almost kind of feels like if the Bucks do win their match, then yes, having FTR versus the Bucks, whatever it is, would be great. Because again, these Bucks are going to be different. And if BCC wins, then they have to get a chance at the Bucks. Like I know the rankings are very subjective and they're nebulous in their creation. Nobody quite knows what goes into it, but like, if BCC walks out of here with a win over FTR, they have to get a shot at the tag titles. Like they just have to. I don't know, they don't necessarily have to win it, but they have to get a shot at it. I love Slak. I hadn't even thought about it. This is definitely going to be, this might be the best match on the card, but it's definitely going to be the bloodiest. There's no way that all 4 of these guys don't leave there looking like, Red Skull from, Captain America. Like it's just they're all going to look like that. And the only other thing too I want to bring up is, and I want to echo something, Josh, you talked about with RL, another bearded man on the last edition of AEW Dudes, is that how great is Cash? Like how great is this guy? She's just the best. I mean, I like FDR in general, but like every time I see Cash, I'm like, man, guy who gets it. Like he's just a guy. I mean, they both get it, but like, man, Cash is just so good. Like I just don't know. I don't wish that FTR would end, but I want to see Cash get a run of singles matches because I just think he would be dynamite. I think he would be just fantastic. So I'm expecting a great match. I'm expecting a very brutal, definitely again, the most brutal match on the card, I'm sure. And whoever wins, I'm excited to see where they do next. And you know what, if it is a tournament, and let's say that, the Sting, let's say Sting wins, they do the tag tournament, I guess it's a possibility, then you can basically write these 2 in as probably being the finalists in the tournament or some semi-finalists or something like that, and they could just kick the whole feud down the road again because they could just keep bringing it no matter what. So I think it'd be great. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be awesome, but I want to see more Cash. Basically, is my final thought.
Cash also does a couple things no one else in the company does, which are great. Like I love when he takes out guys' knees in unsafe ways or races to block the tag. Like if Dax is on someone and the other tag team partner, Cash sacrificing his body just to like go to block the tag no matter what is just always so cool, and he loves doing it, and I love when he does it. I will be picking him and his tag team partner Dax Harwood though to pick up the win here. I hope it's a return to basics for the tag team division, which I think has really suffered as much or more than the world title scene over the last little while in terms of its importance. And the sick thing is, I think I like Ricky and Big Bill as a tag team more than most people. I just feel like they were never really embraced or presented as a full-time tag team. And so it made everything just feel...
Josh, you're being far too humble. What you need to say is you were right. The trios division ruined everything, and the tag titles were much better. The tag scene was much better before the trios became a thing. You're 100% right. I was like, really? Is that going to happen? You were 100% correct. So there you go.
I appreciate you saying that, Dan. Again, if you're a viewer of AEW Dudes, those are the sort of comments that get read on air. So that's to lead the way there. No, but it is. And I wasn't being smart. I had just seen it happen in feds before. And unless you have a zillion people, you can look at the rankings. The trios and tag division are the same thing. It's in wins in one, you can be a number one contender in the other, even if the other guy's part of a losing trio. It's tough to make both work.
Yeah.
So they should just get rid of the trios. They should just
Agreed.
say bang bang scissor gang. You're all retired, and those belts are too. And then the Guns return with the 50 Cent song in a little while. Next
Yeah,
matchup,
great call. Get the Guns back in the tag division, please, and thank you. Okay.
please. Christian Cage with the Patriarchy, putting the TNT title on the line. Actually, I should say this. Well, okay, I'll say this. Against channel favorite, Daniel Garcia. And I should say, if you're watching this and you're going to be watching Revolution, go to twitch.tv/wrestlingbrain the moment Revolution ends. We're doing a call-in show. We're going all night, baby. You can call in. You can have your voice heard. You can give your score in the chat on what you thought of the pay-per-view. Twitch.tv/wrestlingbrain the moment Revolution ends. Come on, talk with Zoobs and I about what you thought. But this match, Christian Cage versus Daniel Garcia. Dan, is this the time to get real with Daniel Garcia? Is this the time to strap him up and make him a TV champion? Or do you think there's more meat on the Christian bone, so to speak?
For the good of the Discord and the good of all the great brainiacs, it is time to strap up Daniel Garcia. Whether or not Tony Khan sees it that way, I have no idea. I still think there's a little bit left that Christian can do. Adam Copeland is still out there. We don't, I guess he's injured based on that concerto that he took. So I don't, this match to me, as great as the build for Revolution has been, this is the one that seems sort of the hastiest a little bit. I think it'll be a great match. Both these guys obviously are very good. I guarantee that, Garcia grew up watching Christian and Edge just like the rest of us did, because he's younger than us. And so I think it'll be good. I do want to see Garcia hold gold again. He's been the pure champion. I'm pretty sure that's about it. I don't know if this is that moment. I do think that they're going to stretch this Christian thing out a little bit more. It just seems like they haven't quite gotten to the end of that story yet. And this isn't quite that moment. So I'm going to go with Christian, but I do think it's going to be a great match. I expect some interference from the ever increasing patriarchy, and maybe we get some more like Nick Wayne Garcia action, something like that. So, or maybe I guarantee I shouldn't say guarantee. I expect to see Copeland pop in and do something. I've seen people be like, "Oh, this is how he turns," and we get Edge Christian. That I can tell you, I do not want to see again, like those two guys as a tag team. But I do want to see Garcia win a belt at some point. I don't know if this is necessarily that point, but if he wins, I'll be happy for him. He seems like a good dude, and again, a guy who gets it, and certainly a rising star, and that you all have turned me on to very much.
No doubt about that. Slak, am I allowed to say there's no way this match is bad? And I think these guys match up weird.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. There's no way this match is bad. Okay, no way. However, I think these guys match up weird. How do you feel about that?
Well, I guess I don't know. I think Christian is so, like, when I think of him in ring, I don't know. I don't think of him in a technical terms of like what he's capable of doing move wise or like anything like that. But the way he tells a story through combat or, fake combat, whatever you want to call it. Like, I think Christian shines in the deep waters of a match. When you get to like the last 15, 25% of a match, where the way he works through those situations is just as good as anybody's ever done it. Like Danny Garcia is a very technical wrestler, and Christian is not anything close to that. And I think that's where it's a little strange. Styles clashes are good. They can be good. And you've seen Daniel Garcia obviously embrace the sports entertainer inside of him over the last few years. He still does the dance, but he matches up really well with a Bryan Danielson. You don't think of a Christian the way you think of Bryan Danielson, right? I think the match can be good, but the two may or may not have amazing chemistry, I guess, is a possibility.
What about the result? What do you think's going to happen here? Is Christian finally dropping this TNT title?
If I had to put money on this, or if I had gunned ahead, whatever you want to call it, my guess is Copeland does help Garcia win this title or neutralize some of the patriarchy to give Garcia a chance to win this title. And then you sort of spin off into more of this Copeland Christian thing that's clearly not done. There was not a satisfying end to it. If you're, in kayfabe or whatever, if you're sick of those two, like, that's okay. I get that. But I think they're going to continue to tell that story. And this is a good way to do that. I don't think Christian needs a title to be awesome, relevant, and entertaining.
That's true. Yeah.
Like
Sure.
it helps for sure, but it doesn't need it for him to come out, call somebody's dad dead, make me laugh 1,000 times, or whatever it takes. So I can see him winning, but I'm predicting that Garcia gets the win here. So that's what I'm going with.
Daniel Garcia also feels like the more fitting TV wrestler of the two of them. Keep in mind that this is the TNT title. I'm not saying Christian's done a bad job with it by any stretch, but when I think of this sort of belt, I think of somebody having TV matches.
Correct.
And something more akin to what Orange Cassidy has done with his reigns in the international title. So I think Dan G would be a nice return to that. I am picking Daniel Garcia to be your new TNT champion here. I think the company's going to go with him in a semi-major way, as they should here. So excited for this match, but not like excited.
Some trepidation. Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question real quick? Because I want to get your thoughts on something. So this occurred to me during maybe the last pay-per-view or the one before, I'm not sure. Should the TBS and TNT titles be contested on pay-per-views, or do you think that they should keep those on TV only? I don't care either way. It's always funny to me when it's like, I've got this pay-per-view, people have paid money for it, it's a big deal, like there's been a huge build for like 6 weeks or whatever, and it's for the TNT title, like it's just kind of a weird, or the TBS title. It always feels like that should be more of a TV thing. I mean, what do you guys think? Like, am I being too, not that they don't have enough titles to take these two out and still have plenty to do, but I don't know, it just kind of feels a little bit weird to me sometimes when I think too much about it.
So I'll tell you this, no one likes TV blow-offs more than me. I think that it's something AEW should use more. Everything doesn't need to be building to a pay-per-view. In fact, the way that their schedule is set up, building to a big match on the Collision before a pay-per-view makes a ton of sense for them, that you have this hot match. Well, maybe some people got the hunger, come back tomorrow for the next show. I wouldn't never want to rule it out. Oh, these things are forbidden from being on pay-per-view. If you have a really hot angle, that can sort of be that, oh, now we're headlining a pay-per-view with it. You can do something like that. But if that was your set rule, that this is the TV championship and that's where it lived, no problem by me. Good idea. Slak, what do you think?
I just want to see it more. I just want to see the change hands more often. That's all. I think both, honestly, like those shouldn't be 8-month, 9-month, 10-month reigns. They should be a few months or, a handful of defenses. And then, oh my God, title changes on TV are great. And I think they don't do it as much as they used to. I mean, the international title, international title, Jesus, has been.
I struggle remembering that too for some reason.
It's just close to what you grew up with, and I think that's why.
Exactly.
That one should be changing hands way more often than it does, and the TNT title is also something that I think should be changing hands on TV. And if we wanted to talk about it, which we don't have to and we won't, but the TBS title also feels like it's sort of stuck, and that's how it became established. The person who had it for forever, and they never lost. So
the only booking is like Okada's reign was so good. What if he never lost?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think you're right, Slak. They should move, and because I remember the Darby Joe TNT matches were fantastic, and those were
amazing.
Great example.
So
is it their third match that's in Seattle and just whips?
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, I'd actually sort of forgotten about that.
They're
One
like
of my favorite TV matches.
They're tearing apart the ring. There's like plywood out there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And what a segue, by the way. The Master. That's incredible.
Making it look easy. Because it's main event time and I want to do something here. I want to take the proverbial wheel and hand it to my friend Slak, because it's Samoa Joe, Hangman Page, and Swerve Strickland in a triple threat for the main event. But Slak, we've been talking all week. I know you're bubbling with ideas about this match. Set it up for us. Throw us some questions. What do you have to say about Sunday's main event?
Yeah, this is going to go a little all over the place. I'm going to say what I have to say, and then I'll get your feedback, because I'm very interested. The way I'm thinking about this is like, it's a lot of moving pieces, so bear with me. I am nowhere near ready to see the end of Samoa Joe as champion. I do not want him not to be champion. He's so good in this role. He's established a major amount of credibility with this title that frankly wasn't there. There was never a chance during the reign of MJF that you felt he was actually going to lose until he lost. He had a lot of title defenses on pay-per-views that felt like they were foregone conclusions. Obviously, they were good matches, but they never really had any doubt. This, again, beautiful build, maybe one of the best builds they've ever had, one of the best builds they've ever had for this title. And I don't know who's going to win. I have no idea who's going to win this match. And that's what I want going into these things. That said, I don't get why you do a three-way unless you're either protecting Samoa Joe, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, or you're having Hangman cheat his ass off. I know there are no DQs in a three-way, but have him win, because this is what's like percolating behind the scenes, right? Swerve is finally kind of harnessing that babyface energy from the crowd. Even though he did a lot of despicable things to get to this point, clearly the crowd is behind him, and they made Hanger turn to even drive that further more, right? So Hangman's become this title. He's not obsessed with the title. He's obsessed with making sure Swerve doesn't win the title. And those are two different things. And he's crazed. Like, he is a lunatic, and he looks awesome. And I just think this is the best Hangman we've ever had. This is better than drunk Hangman. This is better than sad Hangman. It's 1,000 times better than sad Hangman. Lose that forever, please. And so, like, this is phenomenal, right? And there's so much more that you can tap into. If you would have said to me the minute after the Texas Death Match ended that they were going to still be feuding, I would have said, there's no way that can be good. It's better than it could have, than it was. So, like, for me, my mind is, I don't want Joe to lose yet, because I think he's doing a phenomenal job. His match is all kick ass. And he's terrifying. And he's saying it. I'm going to kick both of your asses. I don't care. There's 1, 2, 7 of you. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And I think with Swerve, what we're seeing isn't the apex of his potential popularity. I don't think he's all the way there yet. You know, I said it earlier in tonight's video that there's more momentum behind a guy in the chase, and Swerve is so ready to ascend to that level, and it's historic, right? It's important for wrestling for this to happen. Having a black AEW champion is a big deal, and it needs to occur, and I think it will occur. But and it's like there's a little bit of a risk of not striking now, while Swerve is very hot, because if he gets hurt or if the booking suffers a little bit in the future, you could derail what's happening. But Swerve winning this title as the first black AEW champion doesn't feel right if he wins it in a three-way to me. It just doesn't make him truly ascend to that level of overcoming something in a one-on-one versus kind of pinning a guy, or maybe he pins Hangman and doesn't pin Joe, and you're left with kind of questions about how he did it. I don't want there to be questions about how Swerve won his first major heavyweight title. He should do it in a singles match. So again, I'm totally overthinking this. Outside factors in this match that are driving what I'm thinking about. Ospreay's signing. Obviously, the road to All In is massive, and Will Ospreay is going to be a huge part of that show. It does feel like it's a far way off, but it's not. It's 6 months away. Things move quickly, right? So you're going to get him involved in that somewhere, somehow. Okada coming in throws a bigger wrench into that. He's got to be involved in the title scene. It's criminal for him not to be. So, like, I don't think we've reached the end of Joe's potential as champion. I'm very excited for the ascension of Swerve. I think there's more left in the tank of driving this purer babyface energy behind Swerve. The crowd loves Swerve. His promos have gotten better and better. I thought what he said on Wednesday was maybe the best in-ring promo work he's ever done. It was heated. He didn't stumble. He was legitimately believing everything he was saying. So to me, my pick is the only one that makes sense to me. It's Joe pinning Hangman after Hangman incapacitates Swerve in some way that is going to make people hate Hangman more and kind of give Swerve that extra boost where it's like, we got to see this guy win now. Like, this is some bullshit. And it does let Hanger kind of validate his mission statement, which is, I will do whatever I have to do to make sure Swerve does not win the title. So that's where I'm at. This is very hot to me. This is an extremely well-built match. It's as hot as it's been since, I would say, Kenny Omega's run. which also involved Hangman Page, which is cool. But I think Joe is not done yet. I'm not ready for him to lose. And this is what I think should happen. I cede the floor to the gentleman surrounding me here.
Wow.
Beautifully said, man. You should host a
Seriously.
show.
Incredible. That was
I should.
amazing.
Monday nights.
Dan, how does that hit your ears as Slak sort
Perfectly.
of lays out the world title scene? Does that encapsulate? I think we all agree with him. Very hot angle. No one very assured on result. But do you land on Samoa Joe as well, retaining here?
I do. And for the same reason, I'm not ready. I personally am not ready to not see Samoa Joe be the champion. I really am not. I was there when he won it. We were all excited for it. And Samoa Joe's first reign as AEW champion can't be a couple of matches, a match against Hook, and then a loss in a 3-way at the first pay-per-view. Like, it just can't be. It's impossible. So I do see Joe winning. I would like to continue to see Joe have more, especially if Okada's coming. I mean, we're going to get Joe Okada, we're going to get Joe Ospreay, or whatever, like, I want to see these matches. I want to see Joe versus everybody. I mean, I feel like he's barely scratched the surface. The one thing that I can see, and it's not so much that I think what you said was spot on, but I can kind of see Hangman kind of doing something to Swerve, and then Joe pinning Swerve to retain, which would then create more sympathy for Swerve and make Hangman even more of a heel, because, like, you fucked up, you messed up, this guy got pinned, and you just took his potential from, his win from him, and now he's even more of a heel. What's funny to me, I didn't think I would ever see Hangman as a heel, because he's just, I remember the cowboy shit era and all, people were, that was, again, when I first started watching, people were all behind him. But Hangman as a heel just works perfectly for me. And even more crazier is seeing Prince Nana back babyface. I think that would be fun too. Everybody just loves Prince Nana, but he's such like a, kind of an operator. I just, I don't know if I want to see that, but I would love to find out. I think it'd be pretty cool. So I do think it'll be Joe. I think it'll prolong the Swerve Hangman feud. I think Joe will get a ton more matches, and it'll be awesome. And I don't know. To me, the 3-way just doesn't make a lot of sense. As like you said, I mean, to win your first title that way for either, and for Swerve or for Hangman to win it back just doesn't make a lot of sense. But we'll have to see. But I think it'll be a great match either way.
Well, you guys are very compelling and convincing speakers, because my pick isn't the same as yours, and I'm going, well, I must be an idiot, because that sounds really good. What these guys are saying. So I actually have a lot of the same thoughts of you guys, namely these two. First thought I couldn't agree more on. I am personally not ready for Samoa Joe's run to end. It is gratifying to see Samoa Joe getting his flowers in a way that, like, I just never imagined post WWE he would get. We got to see, not that him and Punk at Wembley was lived up to their trilogy before, but like the idea that we got another Joe Punk and Joe is world champion again is, we are living in Neverland, or whatever.
How great was
it.
Swerve's line about wearing a poncho? How great was that? At first I didn't hear what he said, and then when he posted that picture, I was like, oh, now that's great. That was genius.
It's so good. And again, it goes to show this well that you have to draw from on Samoa Joe, nearly bottomless, active at a main event level. Not just Ring of Honor, TNA, NXT, main event level since what, 2002, 2004? Like, it's really something. He is not just a great wrestler, he is historically great. He is, I think sometimes people, it's like, if somebody asks you who your favorite wrestler is, and you give anyone who was relevant post like 1999, people are like, oh, well, this guy just obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. But Samoa Joe will go down in the halls. Whoever's our age, however long from now, where we worship the guys in the 90s, someone can do that math. 25 years, whoever's that old, then they will be talking about Samoa Joe in that light. And it's great. The other thing I really agree with you guys on is, and ultimately why this informs my pick, is that you really run the risk of squandering an insanely hot Swerve Strickland right now.
That is true.
It's true. Undeniable.
I sort of agree with you guys that your first win in a triple threat is non-ideal, but I don't think it's a big enough deal that people will remember it or anything. I don't think people will be like, but he won his first title in a triple threat. Like, I don't think it's like the biggest concern, but I understand where you guys are coming from for sure. I can't do the math on Samoa Joe holding this title, and I think Will Ospreay is holding it all in. It's really hard to me to figure out the game unless Swerve is just going to be a really transitional champion. Whereas I think Swerve Ospreay is a headliner, and not that Joe Ospreay wouldn't be, but I don't think they want that to headline. And I think you have to build Swerve a little bit. And I love Samoa Joe. He's like on my list, I think my 7th favorite wrestler of all time. You can find that at patreon.com/J0SHC, an audio episode of Fergie and I going through all of our top 10 wrestlers of all time. But he can be Samoa Joe elsewhere on the show. And even if he isn't, we're dealing with house money gravy already. And as unready as I feel, part of that is what wrestling is. I feel unready for the guy I love, and yet we've got an ascendant star who's on the go, so we got to go with the hot hand. We can't stay with yesteryear lest we become OXT. And I don't think AEW is going to. It's so hard to build a hot baby face. You can build a hot heel, but building a good guy that people are dying to get behind, who's house, Swerve's house, who's house, Swerve's house, it's so hard to do. And Swerve Strickland, like he said, has gone from cruiserweight to world title contender, and I think he becomes the world champion on Sunday. And I think he doesn't pin Hangman Page because I think their feud is what they want to continue at the top of the card. And I think this could be seen as a little sacrificial to Samoa Joe, but I think we wouldn't have gotten here anyways without a ton of other factors happening to happen anyway. And so while it might pain me a bit, I hope we still get to see all those Joe matches you guys listed off. I mean, I'd salivate for each and every one of them. I hope we still get to see them outside of the world title, but I'll be picking Swerve Strickland to pin Samoa Joe, continue the Hangman feud, and be your new AEW World Heavyweight Champion.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I can't argue with any of that. Honestly.
No.
Well,
there's no wrong answer.
Right.
There's no wrong answer at all.
This is what we said at the beginning of the video. Yeah, there's no bad outcome. Like, I will not be pissed if any one of 3 guys wins. They're all interesting to me. So kudos to AEW for putting us in this position. It's awesome. You've changed my mind like 4 times in this video, both of you. And I didn't see any of those things possible until now. So I think that's what makes this such a well-built, exciting pay-per-view. I couldn't be more excited for Sunday.
Yeah, I feel the same, man. I am just incredibly pumped. Suffice to say, on a scale of 1 to 7, you guys are both at a 7 for Revolution.
Sure.
7.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at a 7 when you asked that question last week on Twitter. Absolutely.
Love it. If only we were a roulette machine, or no, a slot machine. 3 7s. I mean, that's a big win right there. I'll remind people, if you are watching this and you want to chat with the greatest people in wrestling, head on over to patreon.com/J0SHC. $5 a month gets you all the Patreon content, but also into my Discord where you can chat Revolution while it's happening. I mean, the chat moves really quick during pay-per-views. I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm like, hey, well, hang on a second. But it's a great community. You can join that, be part of the Discord, get all the stuff behind there. Slak and I do a show on Mondays, twitch.tv/WrestlingBrain. We play Fire, or we sim Fire Pro Wrestling. We build our dream federation. It's flatly unbelievable. Slak, anything you want to say about WBCW Meltdown?
Yeah, it's the only wrestling show on Monday. And you should tune in because I know there's no other show for you to watch. It's so fun. We have a blast doing it. We've got, honestly, Monday night, I'm just going to say our hottest angle. We have a huge match scheduled for Monday night. I really would advise you to tune in if you haven't done it yet. So please come hang out on Monday night. Check my Twitter feed or Josh's. You'll see the info. Please
let's say what it is for the people who stayed here and watched to the end of the preview video.
Yeah, you're gonna get yourself a Mickey Williams Grave Robber Texas Death Match for the world.
That's
title.
This Monday. 7 in the West, 10 in the East. Twitch.tv/WrestlingBrain. Dan, tell the people what projects you have. You've got your finger in many pies as it pertains to the New York sports scene. What's going on in your world?
Well, my main thing is Islanders Anxiety podcast with my friend Michael Leboff and I. We do every week, and then we also have a podcast called Weird Islanders, the podcast, where we and a guest talk about a guy who only played a little bit for the Islanders and fall down any number of rabbit holes, good and bad. Yeah, a few teams are as uniquely positioned for a podcast like that as the Islanders are, having been completely insane for the better part of 50 years. So we have a great time. We have a Patreon too, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. I try to keep that out of the Discord, because the only people who ever want to hear me talk about the Islanders are other Islanders fans. So shout out to Rat in the Discord, Ryan, my friend. He's also an Islanders fan, but try and keep that stuff out of there. But this has been great. I mean, the people who are listening to this on the Patreon already know, if you're not in the Discord, you have to be. It's just, forget about the wrestling thing. It's just such a great community of very cooperative, very nice people that just love hanging out with each other and not hearing the noise of social media and the outside world. And it's such a great community to be in, whether we're talking wrestling, movies, music, you name it. It's such a great place to be. And it reminds me of, the sort of message boards of yore, when, you found a like-minded group of people, and they were awesome and they were just a lot of fun. So
that's such a nice compliment, Dan. That's exactly how I feel about it, is that it captures this old message board feeling. Yeah. That's a really nice, and you're a giant part of why it's so good. So I appreciate you saying so.
Thank you.
As are many of the people watching this. The pick'em sheet is up. Go fill that out. That'll be up by the time you finish this video, I think. Dan, what a pleasure to have you on, man. We'll have you back here very soon. Thank you so much for making some time.
Thank you. Anytime. Let me know. I'm here.
Slak, as always, you are the man. Thanks for carving out some time for the preview show. Come watch again, twitch.tv/wrestlingbrain. The moment revolution ends. Call in, be heard. And until we talk to you then, like Hiroshi Tanahashi says, love and energy.
Love and energy.